What's up guys, it's your boy Dekkster here, and they just announced the new Hearthstone expansion. It's going to be Rastakhan's Rumble. It's going to be released on December 4th, so about a month away, and there's going to be 135 new cards. When you log in, after it releases, you should get a free legendary card and 2 copies of the rare spirit card that associates with that legend. The new keyword here is going to be overkill. Overkill cards will trigger when they kill a minion by doing damage that exceeds the minion's health. So if it's 2 health and you hit it for 2, that's not overkill. But if it's 2 health and you hit it for 3, that is overkill. So there are going to be spirits. It seems like 1 spirit for each class. And these are manifestations of the Loa's power. All spirits are going to be 0/3 minions, and they all are going to have stealth for 1 turn. On top of this, each class gets a Loa, which is going to be a powerful primal god. And the Loas should have good synergy with the spirits. For example, for Warlock, we're going to have Spirit of the Bat and Hyreek the Bat. And you can kind of see they got a little bit of synergy going on here. It also seems like they don't expect these to kind of go in every Warlock deck, similar to maybe they expected with the Death Knights. Like Hyreek the Bat is probably not going to be running, control lock lists. But maybe you want to build a deck around the Spirit and the Loa, because they do seem to have synergy. Now they're also going to release new single player content. It's going to be called Rumble Run, where you play against a bunch of different champions in the arena or something like that. Imagine it's going to be similar to a dungeon run or something, but I'm not too sure. So yeah, pretty exciting stuff. There have been about 16 cards revealed right now, so I'm going to quickly go through my thoughts on those. So we have Chavala the Tiger. This is the Paladin Loa. It's a legendary minion that costs 25 mana with 7 attack and 5 HP. It has Divine Shield, Rush, and Lifesteal, and it costs 1 less for each mana you've spent on spells. So it's very similar to Ziliax, which is running in so many lists right now. But I mean, the main drawback here is that high mana cost. It's kind of strange. Definitely not going to fit in something like an Odd Paladin or something very aggressive, but maybe something a little bit more control-y. I've been playing a lot of Cube Paladin recently, and this actually seems like it might be a good fit. Blessing of Kings is 4 mana. Spike Ridge Steed is 6 mana. That's 10 off right there. If you play those again, this thing gets knocked down to 5 mana. Plus, if you do like equalities, consecrations, stuff like that, I can see this being discounted. But if you get this early on, it's definitely going to be dead in your hand. More of a late game card. Definitely gonna have to see more of the other Paladin cards before making a choice here, but it does seem like it's a little bit too slow. Can also be an activator for Corpse Taker. Maybe there can be some sick Holy Wrath builds around this thing. That'd be a lot of fun. And maybe even pulling this thing with a prismatic lens, you could definitely nut that out. But I don't know, in my mind right now, it kind of just seems to have a home in Cube Paladin or some sort of just Control Paladin. Hopefully a new Control Paladin archetype emerges. All right, we got Soul Phrase, which is a warrior weapon. It's an epic card. It's 6 mana, 4 attack, 4 durability weapon. And it has overkill, so you can attack again. This is actually really similar to Fool's Bane, which didn't see much play, and is also somewhat similar to an Arcanite Reaper. A little less attack, but more durability. I could see this being used in some sort of aggressive list that's trying to punch through some taunts. It does a nice job of cleaning up some chain gangs. Plus, you can hit them in the face after you clear the taunts, assuming you have the durability. I'm hoping maybe they introduce a sort of tempo warrior, and I can definitely see this having a home there. 6 mana for 16 damage is not bad, so I can see maybe this gets some play. So we have Spring Paw, a 1 mana 1/1 rush beast with a battle cry. Add a 1/1 links with rush to your hand, which I imagine is going to be kind of the same thing as this. Obvious synergies here with the Scavenging Hyena, and Toxmonger is going to be huge with this thing. You can just punch through taunts. Also, maybe this makes Quest a little bit more viable, and of course, you got synergies with Houndmaster, Razormaw. Just the fact that it's a beast 1-drop makes this really, really good in hunting. We got Cannon Barrage, a 6 mana epic rogue spell here that deals 3 damage to a random enemy and repeats it for each one of your pirates. So if they release a lot more pirate cards for rogue or just neutral pirates, this is possibly really good. So with 1 pirate, it's going to be 6 damage, and with 2, it's going to be 6 mana for 9 damage, which really doesn't seem that bad. And you can do up to 24 damage if you have a board full of pirates, which doesn't seem likely, but I mean, if you can manage to pull that off, we don't know the new cards. 24 damage is insane. Perhaps we're going to see a new pirate rogue archetype, I would hope. That maybe takes over the odd rogue, maybe? I don't know. Plus, we're going to get to Sharkfin Fan, which would have some really good synergies here. We have Surrender to Madness, a priest 3 mana spell here, which destroys 3 of your mana crystals in order to give all minions in your deck +2/+2. And honestly, this just seems awful to me. Like, getting rid of 3 mana crystals is so big. Unless maybe there's some sort of Zoo Priest archetype that comes out. I don't see this thing being played. I mean, there were some sort of like Murloc Priest decks in days past that kind of did all right, so maybe this has a place there. But this just seems like such a loss of tempo that you're not gonna want to play this thing. Probably the worst card we've seen yet for this expansion, but maybe there are some synergies once we see the rest of the set. So we got Hex Lord Malakras here, 8 mana 5/5 with Battlecry. Add a copy of your opening hand to your hand, except this card. That's a really cool effect. I would assume this would also give you a coin back. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like it does. So it's an 8 mana 5/5 that also draws 3 cards in a way. Now the main thing I like here is the fact that maybe it really makes you consider your mulligan. Maybe you're playing against a control deck and you really want to get some extra fireballs or, I don't know, pyroblasts in your hand. So maybe you keep those for the mulligan when you normally wouldn't, because you know you're eventually going to get the Hex Lord. But usually the cards you want in your opening hand are probably going to be different from the cards you want later on in the late game. Keeping something like a Primordial Glyph or something would be huge. All right, so we got a Warlock spell here, the 8 mana Void Contract that destroys half of each player's deck. So the earlier on you're able to play this, the better it is. Or, you know, the more value you kind of get from playing it. This is going to destroy combo decks. If you're playing like a Mecha'thun and this gets played against you, you're kind of out of luck, probably. Now it is a really high mana cost, so maybe it's a little bit too slow by the time you're able to play this thing. They've already drawn a decent amount, but maybe it has its place in something like a Spiteful Summoner Zoo? That might be pretty cool. Maybe running this thing with an Archivist wouldn't be too bad. Like jamming 2 of these and your Archivist pulls it, they don't deal with your Archivist, it pulls it again. That seems pretty decent to me. Maybe you can even just Blood Bloom this thing earlier on just to kind of counter maybe all those combo decks we're definitely seeing. It could ruin Mali, it could ruin Togwaggle, of course anything Mecha'thun. There's OTK Res Priests that are around right now. This is a really cool card and I'm pretty excited about this one. We got Shark Fin Fan, a 2 mana 2/2 pirate. This is a neutral, it is a common, and after your hero attacks you summon a 1/1 pirate. So the first thing I think of is you want a really cheap weapon. Maybe something like an Even Rogue would be pretty good. You have the dagger on 1, play this on 2, and you swing. It's a 2 mana 3/3 in a way, and then you're just going to be able to constantly swing with your dagger. Plus the fact that Cannon Barrage is also even, maybe there's some room for something here. It's relatively similar to Hench Clan Thug, but as opposed to Hench Clan Thug where every time you attack it adds to the stats of the thug, this kind of just adds that extra pirate. But you are getting 1/1 worth of stats every time you swing. So I'm really excited about this card. I think it's probably one of the best cards we've seen so far from this expansion. All right, so we got Spirit of the Shark, a 4 mana 0/3. Stealth for 1 turn, of course, and then your minions, battle cries, and combos trigger twice. So it's very similar to Bran Bronzebeard. A little bit more mana, of course no attack and a little bit less health, but it does have that stealth, so it's usually going to be good for 1 turn, but of course it still dies to things like Hellfire, so there's no guarantee that it's going to stick. I mean, sometimes it's going to be a 4 mana do nothing, but a lot of people thought maybe like Skull of Minari was a 5 mana do nothing, and look at it now. I mean, imagine landing this thing down and then getting a huge Van Cleef. Or maybe you play a Faldori Strider, you get extra spiders in your deck without having to run the Elec. SI7 does 4 damage now. Fungalmancer would get some insane buffs on the board. Shroom Brewer could heal for 8. Biteweed might actually be pretty decent. It ends up being kind of like a cheaper Van Cleef. Minstrel can draw 4. Praise Chemist might see play because that's a +8 attack. This does seem like a really strong card. A lot of potential here. We got the Paladin Minion here, a 2 mana 1/3, the Immortal Prelate with the Death Rattle. Shuffle this into your deck. It keeps any enchantments. So it's very similar to Kingsbane. Of course, it's super open to silence effects, which would suck, but Paladins really throw so many things that you want to silence. I don't know, it's almost like you'd want to bait out your opponent's silences before going in on this thing by using, I don't know, your kings and your steed and all that. And I don't know, imagine if this thing doesn't get silenced. You put a kings on it, it dies. You can pull it back with a Witchwood Piper. Maybe it dies again. You can use a second Witchwood Piper, throw a steed on it or something like that. This thing can get really, really annoying. Plus, when you think you can even pull it out with Call to Arms, seems really, really strong. Imagine this in maybe like an even Paladin. You know, you're running Blessing of Kings, you're running Steed. So just throwing those on here could be insane. This thing definitely seems like it's gonna fit in with any deck that's running Lynissa. Or, I mean, if you're running Kings and Steed, you might as well throw this thing in. Plus, maybe you wanna run this with some Bells. bells. You know, using a lot of bells could be pretty nice. And it's seeming like this thing has some pretty good synergy with Chavala. So you might see this and Chavala in the same deck. All right, so we got Reign of Toads, a 6 mana common Shaman spell. Summon 3/2/4 toads with taunt. Overload 3. Kind of seems to be like a bad version of Spreading Plague, mostly. Do you think if Spreading Plague was a 6 mana summon 3/2/4s, do you think anyone would actually play it? I mean, plus the fact that it overloads, I just don't see this thing being played unless it's in an overload deck. It's just like, it's terrible. Compared to Plague, it's off. Chain Gang is 4 mana, and you get 2/2/3s. This is 6 mana, and you get 3/2/4s, but you're overload. So the overload wasn't here. I don't even know if you'd still want to play this thing. You probably would run it if it didn't have overload, actually. I'd rather run Spirit Wolves than this thing. It just seems bad to me. All right, so we got Savage Striker, a druid, 2 mana, 2/3 with the battle cry. Deal damage to an enemy minion equal to your hero's attack. So this can only be to a minion. Can't be to their face. It's not like the Merc Spark Eel. Maybe you want this in even druid, but at that point it's just 1 damage to a random minion, which isn't a lot. But I mean, usually if you want to get value, you're gonna have to hero power anyway. So it's almost like a 4 mana card if you actually want to get value out of the battle cry. Unless you're using stuff like maybe Claw. Maybe you can use this with Claw. That wouldn't be too bad. You can use it with Savage Roar. Once you have Malfurion down, you can get a fairly consistent 3 damage on a minion. But I mean, you probably want to play this early game. I mean, I guess you can use this with the bites, but it's just not. Seems pretty bad. It's decently statted as a 2 mana 2/3, but that battle cry usually just not going to get much value out of it. We got Baited Arrow, a hunter 5 mana card here. Deal 3 damage, overkill summon a 5/5 Devil Soul. So this is another overkill card. You do need to use this on something with 2 or less health in order to spawn that Devil Soul. So it's pretty much deal 2 damage to an enemy. If it kills it, summon a 5/5. Somewhat similar to Flanking Strike. It's 1 mana more and 2/2 more stats on the minion, but also does 1 less damage. Might have some good synergy with Hunter's Mark and stuff like that, but at that point it's a 6 mana combo. Not really liking this one. I feel like I'd rather just run Flanking Strike. Because what if you have this in your hand and everything on the board just has 3 or more health? You're kind of just out of luck, and 5 mana deal 3 damage is pretty awful. So the fact that you have to overkill kind of kills this card. All right, so we got Spirit of the Bat, a Warlock card, a 2 mana 0/3. Stealth for 1 turn, of course, and after a friendly minion dies, give a minion in your hand +1/+1. Now the first thing I think of is you'd have to run this over Keleseth, which I don't think you're gonna want to do, but once Keleseth rotates, maybe that's when we're going to start running this thing. Normally when you're playing like Zoo or something like that, you want to keep your minions on the board. You want to get value trades. You don't really want to just wipe your board off. Like, of course, maybe this thing can maybe have some nice synergies with Hyreek the Bat. Buffing that up would have insane value, but is it really worth it to make that your game plan? I'm not sure. But yeah, I really like the possible synergy with the Loa, but I just don't see this being run over Keleseth. I mean, I don't like, even if you're running the Loa, just hitting the Loa with a Keleseth and maybe some Soul Infusions is going to be better than trying to bank on this thing. We got Pyromaniac, a 3 mana 3/4 mage minion. Whenever your hero power kills a minion, you draw a card. So we do have a beautiful stat line here, 3 mana 3/4. Maybe some support for Odd Mage here. And then your opponent is kind of forced to deal with this thing, because if you manage to even get it to trigger that hero power for a draw, that's insane value. I feel like this might make Odd Mage work a lot better. We're going to have to see the rest of stuff. I don't really see it fitting in Tempo Mage too well because of the nerfed Mana Worm, and I don't really know if it fits in Murloc Mage because I'd rather run like Luna and stuff like that in there for the 3 mana slot. Maybe this is actually running, I don't know, even Big Spell Mage, because getting card draw could be really, really good. Plus, if you have Jaina down and you have this down as well, getting the card draw on top of the Water Elemental, it feels pretty nice, I'm sure. All right, so we got Hyreek the Bat, the 8 mana Loa for Warlock, has a 1/1 stat line in the battle cry, fill your board with copies of this minion. Also, it's a beast, not a demon. So definitely take that into consideration. Void Analyst is not going to work on this thing, but Soul Infusion would be nuts. Maybe get this thing to the leftmost of your hand, you land 1 Soul Infusion on it, and you fill your board with 3/3s. If you land 2 Soul Infusion, 5/5s, like that's pretty nutty. If you're playing against an opponent that doesn't have good AoE clears, this will be great. But then again, with the kind of playstyle of Zoo right now, this is a little bit slow. You don't really want to bank on this. You want to use your Soul Infusion on other things, like your Chain Gangs, your Doubling Imps, get those out out there and just kill your opponent, hopefully around turn 8, around turn 10. Whereas with this, you need it in your hand, and I don't know, like using Soul Infusions on this when you could be using it on Chain Gang, it just doesn't seem worth it to me. If you do combo it with the Spirit of the Bat, you can get this thing up to insane stats, which would be fun, but again, I don't see it being too competitive. So yeah, I think that's it. I think we covered all the cards that we've seen so far. If you guys enjoyed this overview, my brief thoughts on the cards so far, really excited for this new expansion. And once again, it's coming December 4th. They're going to be revealing cards very frequently. Be sure to express your thoughts in the comments about what you think about the cards, and I'll see you guys later.